How y'all doing? I'm Paul Ryan, your host of the Across the Cowboys podcast. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us. And to our regular listeners, welcome back. With me, as always, is my co-host, the greatest co-host in the world, Mike the Pig Crum. Mike, how are you?
I'm feeling lacking, man. I'm looking in the background, and he has more Dallas than I have Disney. He's got me beat.
Yes, sir. I'm noticing all those footballs, man. I can only imagine there's got to be some pretty cool stories there with those.
Yeah, there are. I appreciate it. I'm really fortunate and really blessed. Been able to do some stuff and be at some games and some events and things like that. And so just grateful for my blessings and the life I've gotten to live and just grateful for what I get to do for a living. And yeah, I mean, I love football. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely. We appreciate the tease there. Before I bring you in, RJ, Mike, where can we find you on Twitter?
At CD Piglet, guys. Nice and easy.
I'm Paul Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at Paul_Ryan15. Well, here we are with episode 4 of Mike and I's new series, The Cowboys Crystal Ball. Last week, we had Mauricio Rodriguez, host of Primetime Show and member of the A to Z Dallas family, come on and discuss weeks 10 through 13. You can find Mauricio on Twitter at MauNFL. That's MAU NFL, all caps. This week, we'll be discussing weeks 13 through 18. And our guest tonight is manager and editor of Blogging the Boys website and host of the Ocho and SB Nation podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome RJ Ochoa to the broadcast. RJ, how are you?
It's great to be with you guys. Happy Monday. Happy final week of June. This is technically the final month without any kind of legitimate football action. And so it'll be over in a few days, and the countdown to training camp will be on.
Yes, sir.
So is this finally the part of the year where you get to kind of relax, maybe take a vacation, kind of, make up for some quality time before the season gets started, RJ?
Like I said, I'm really blessed in that my wife loves football, and so she's really, she really works with my schedule, and she enjoys it. And my parents love football, and so I'm really fortunate that it kind of is like a family thing, as much work as it is. So it doesn't feel like work, but you are right. This is the time of year where it's easier to get away, where there isn't as much breaking news and things like that. So we've got a trip planned next week. And that's kind of the last hurrah until March. I mean, it's a marathon, but it's a fun one. I mean, it's a really fun time of year, and it's a lot. Football season when the Dallas Cowboys are awesome. It's just such a magical ride, and so we're obviously hoping that repeats itself here.
Absolutely.
Is it a magical ride this week when you send something out every time somebody wins a Super Bowl? It's almost always like, hey, when this happens, Dallas wins and everybody loves RJ. But boy, this week, how's it been this week when something like that hits and man, it's just, they're after you.
So what you're talking about, Mike, is the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup on Sunday night. And in the last time they happened to have won it was 2003, I think. I already forgot. But I just tweeted, that the Cowboys' first game that season was Tampa Bay at home, and they lost, and they went on to lose 3 more. They started that season off 0-4. And so I like to do that. I mean, it's just a funny thing. I enjoy connecting weird dots. I used to really enjoy trying to say words backwards. And I don't know what that says about me, but so I really like to kind of find funny, weird coincidences. And some people take them more seriously than others. I can tell you that. I get a lot of people who are like, this means nothing. And I'm just like, I know, like, I'm not sitting here and telling you that, like, hey, go to Vegas right now, bank on 0-4. But it is fun. I mean, my job is to make everything about the Dallas Cowboys. And so I try to do that every chance I get.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
same people retweet out the ones where you're like, Dallas is going to win it because they're like, hell yeah, RJ.
It's a good time. This offseason I had during Troy Aikman's 7th season, the previous Super Bowl had been in California, and the next Super Bowl was in Arizona, and the Cowboys won it, obviously. It was Super Bowl 30. And so this past Super Bowl was in California. Next season Super Bowl is in Arizona, and Dak Prescott's entering his 7th season. So, like, that's just That's fun. Like if we can all, sit around the bar, the coffee table, whatever, and talk about that stuff, I think that's fun and interesting. But maybe I'm different. That's just how I roll.
I love it.
Well, RJ, while we're talking about controversial tweets, let the people know where they can find you on Twitter.
At RJ Ochoa is where, according to Mike, I can upset you and cause you pain, unless you're an Avalanche fan. If you are, congratulations. But yeah, so at RJ Ochoa, I keep it nice and simple.
Yes, sir. All right, RJ. Let's get after it. When we last week we talked about weeks 10 through 13, but heading into week 14, what record do you have for the Cowboys?
It's so hard because there will invariably be a game they win that they shouldn't, and vice versa. I think that they probably shouldn't have won the Chargers game, or you could argue the Patriots game last year. They probably shouldn't have lost the Broncos game. I mean, football is weird like that, right? It is so rare that you are as great against the spread as the Cowboys are or were last year, at least for the first half of the season. And so, I mean, by that point in time, I do suspect, they'll be sitting on some, maybe 8-ish wins, 7, 8 wins. 9, I think, if you're a little optimistic. And obviously a lot of that depends on injuries. How healthy are they? Do they lose a key contributor for a game? Which game is that? It's such a dance that happens every week. So I think somewhere between 7 and 9 wins feels really safe for me. That's a little bit of a wide net, but even if they're sitting on 7 wins, that's a prime position given the division they play in to still win that thing.
Yep. I have them at 8-4 through ours right now, and I think you're at 9-3, Paul.
No, I had us at 8-4 as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's hard to argue with. What are the 4 losses that you guys have?
Mine was Tampa, the Rams, Minnesota. That is a good question. What's yours, Paul?
My 4, I had us losing to the Rams, to the first matchup versus Philly.
So 2 in a row.
What's that?
So 2 in a row, you've got them dropping.
Was that 2 in a row?
Yeah.
Colts were my other one. Sorry, that was my 4. Colts were the 4th.
See, I think
I had the Colts as well.
I don't believe in the Colts this year, and I've talked a lot of trash about them. But for that reason, I was talking all sorts of trash about the Broncos last year, and then that came back to bite me. So I could see that. You both have the Cowboys go into Lambeau, beating the Packers. Very interesting.
Yeah, off a bye. I like McCarthy off a bye. I like Dan Quinn off a bye.
That's true. It's hard to disagree, and they don't have to go there when it's frigid or cold. It's not sunsuit or swimming suit weather or anything like that. But it's still pretty nice as far as Lambeau Field's concerned.
I copped out. I had them losing to Minnesota because I think the new coach is going to kind of say, last 2 times we play these guys, their backup quarterback beat us. And if we are coming off a win against Green Bay, I think we kind of, exhale a little. So going 1-1 in those games is kind of a cop-out because it could easily you beat Minnesota and lose to Green Bay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you split those games, I think you're fine. I wonder if they'll stumble in that little stretch between the Lions and the Bears. I know it's easy to look at those two and say like, oh yeah, they'll wax both those teams, but it's football is a weird sport. A lot of people believe in the Lions. The Bears have Matt Eberflus. He obviously knows this team well. But I'm with you. I think 8 wins is very safe at that point in the season.
That Lions game has trap game written all over it in my eyes.
It's tough. They're interesting. Because you could argue they should have beaten the Ravens last year. They had all sorts of games that had some weird, wonky stuff happen. And maybe they do improve. Jared Goff has had success against the Cowboys. It's a team game, but that's worth noting. That's an interesting little stretch there. I think if they get through that first part, I know we're here to talk about the last part, with some breathing room, then I think they're set, because this last part really isn't that nerve-wracking in my mind, at least.
Absolutely.
Great setup for the first question, actually. Well done, RJ.
So, RJ, when you look at the schedule, is this the toughest part of the season in your eyes?
Honestly, no. I think, I think the toughest part probably starts in Green Bay. Obviously that's a tough game, and then you're playing back-to-back road games, fine, but right before Thanksgiving. So after 2 straight road games, you don't even get like a normal reprieve. It's the quick, rush nature that is Thanksgiving. And then, normally they do fall into the Thanksgiving Thursday night football kind of lull. They've had that going most of the time for the last, 7 or 8 years, with a few exceptions. But, they do get that little mini bye, but they get it before the Colts game. And who cares about the Colts? And that's such a tough stretch, I think, because, I know right now it's easy to say the Colts will be fine, the Texans will be trash, the Jaguars will be trash. Obviously, we don't know what the season has in store, but that's a tense time of the year. And I know you don't want to be playing the Packers then, don't get me wrong. But if you want to be in the playoffs, you want to be playing well in the playoffs, you don't want to play these cupcakes in December and kind of lower your own inhibitions and your own expectations of yourself,
Right.
or maybe establish some improper expectations of yourself. And so I do think that is a nice place to land, but I really think Green Bay, Minnesota, New York, one of the Packers or Vikings is a playoff team. I think they both could be. And the Giants is a division rival, and they're a division rival that doesn't play on Thanksgiving a lot. I don't fall into the camp that thinks like everybody gets up when they play the Cowboys, but I do think that teams get up to play on Thanksgiving when they don't usually. There are a lot of teams that kind of wind up playing on Thanksgiving a lot, like the Bears play the Lions a lot, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Giants are so rare to play on Thanksgiving. So I could see them putting a little bit more extra pressure on themselves to win. I think that happened 3 years ago when the Bills went to AT&T Stadium. They were juiced to play on AT&T or on Thanksgiving and have their way with the Cowboys. And I don't think the Giants are that talented. But Brian Daboll was there, and so I think that's probably the toughest 3-game stretch, all things considered.
With all the uncertainties with this Cowboys team, you look at the offensive line, at wide receiver, even linebacker, and some places on defense and on the defensive line. Does this part of the schedule maybe give you some Romo in December vibes?
Yeah, I always hated the reputation that Romo had in December. There were just some really weird things that happened that weren't all his fault. Obviously, some were. I would be stunned if this December featured some sort of collapse, especially those first 3 games. If they don't win 2 of them, but if you could argue if they don't win all 3 of those, I think people will panic. Especially because right after the third game, they play the entire AFC South in a 4-week stretch. I'm sorry, they have the Eagles game sandwiched in there. But if they go into that Eagles game on Christmas Eve with some low, steam, that could be really bad. That could set the Eagles up, because they'll probably be having success too, for some sort of, maybe not kill shot, but some sort of way to put some serious distance between them. And especially if the Cowboys come out of that game, that second game against Philly with their tail stuck between their legs, then they have to go right back on Thursday Night Football. And that's such a, and it's weird because that Philly game is on a Saturday, so it's not quite Thursday Night Football. You don't go Sunday to Thursday. But, the Cowboys have never had to play a road Thursday game. They've always had Thanksgiving at home, and then generally the second Thursday after that is when they go on the road, but they get a standard 7 days in between. So this is a new thing for them. Everybody else has had to deal with a road Thursday game at some point or another. And obviously you got to go somewhere very cold against a very physical team that likes to run the ball in the Titans. And so that's such an important, I'm not afraid of that stretch, but I'm afraid of that game against the Eagles on Christmas Eve.
Absolutely. We're going to take a look at our Week 14 matchup versus the Houston Texans, And in 2021, their regular season record was 4-13. They were 3rd in the division. They missed the playoffs, and in 2022, their strength of schedule is the 19th most difficult. RJ, what, if anything, worries you about this Houston Texans team?
Regression of the mean. I think that they were really particularly bad last year, and obviously there are some things coming out about that franchise that aren't exactly positive and glowing, and so you can argue maybe they deserved them. But I do think that the NFL left them in a really, really difficult spot last year. Left David Culley in a really difficult spot, and I think they made a lot of lemonade with those lemons. I think, people make such a big deal about how the Colts lost to the Raiders and the Jaguars at the end of the season to cough away their playoff chance. The Chargers lost to this Texans team. The Chargers got blown out by this Texans team. And a lot of people, really believe in the Chargers and really believe in Brandon Staley. And so if it can happen to them, that would be my concern. And not only that, we mentioned the Titans a minute ago. the Titans lost to the Texans and then almost lost again in Week 18. I mean, this was a plucky team. So my concern would be them taking the next step. Mac Jones rightfully gets a lot of credit, as far as, last year's rookie quarterbacks taking the next step. Davis Mills will obviously be a little bit better. I don't know that I think he's amazing, but if he's competent, I mean, that team has enough pieces to be competent, and that is a difficult thing in the wrong sort of circumstances.
Michael, when you look at this Texans team, does anything concern you at all?
My concern would be more about playing down to competition. Yeah. I think if Dallas is ready to go, I think they would handle. I like Dan Quinn's track record against not as good QBs is pretty good. He shows up pretty well if the QB's not a superstar. So I think he should be able to handle Davis Mills. But you have to worry about, do you think you could just roll the star helmet out there and get a W? If you, like RJ said, if you do that, they upset the Chargers. That's one of the things I have marked on my notes. You can't just roll your helmet out there and think it's all going to be good. You got to show up to play. Otherwise, that's a team that's them and the Lions those are the two games that are like, okay, here we go. Better strap it up, because they're going to come to play even if they don't have the dogs that you do.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think about that New York Giants game in 2019. Of course, we know that the Cowboys didn't have any really starting receivers. Dak didn't have a lot of help that week. But just to lose a game like that, I mean, that could be so impactful, especially at this point in the season. But what's scary about these Texans teams is they're a young and hungry team with really nothing to lose. And when you go up against a team like that, like you said, Mike, you can't just roll your helmet out there and expect to win.
Yeah.
RJ, you kind of touched on your thoughts on Davis Mills, the quarterback there. Mike, I know you're quite the scout. What were your thoughts on Davis Mills coming into the league and what you saw last year?
I didn't have a high grade on him. I thought they hit him pretty well. I thought I liked the game plan. He's about 200 yards a game. If I remember right, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Like they didn't do a lot with him, but he has the ability to be dual threat. And I'm interested to see, because Brandon Cook's a good receiver. He gets 1,000 yards everywhere he goes. And is it Nico Collins, the big boy, that they'll be able to go to him. So, it's not one I'm going in worried about, but I'm interested to see how he progresses, because they got to kind of let him loose a little bit more.
Right. And don't forget about your guy, John Mechie, as well, and up-and-coming tight end Brevin Jordan, who's kind of a big boy who was started to come on late in the season last year as well.
Yes, sir.
RJ, we're talked about this point in the season, how important these December games are. Would a loss to the Texans hurt more than a win would help, do you think?
I mean, again, it depends on the circumstances, right? Like, did they lose the week before? Did they lose on Thanksgiving? Because I do think that sometimes those things can feel bigger. From the perspective of the week before, the Colts game's on Sunday Night Football, and the week before that's obviously on Thanksgiving. So a lot of people will have seen the Cowboys right then. So, if the Cowboys have stumbled in those two games, or in one of them between the Giants and the Colts, and then they lose to the Texans, it becomes this bigger than what it actually is kind of feeling. So, I mean, I don't mean to dodge the question, but it really does depend on context. But, I mean, generally, given the quality of the team, you're supposed to win that game. The Cowboys have only ever lost to the Texans once in the regular season, twice. Sorry, but they did lose the last matchup, and that was a really embarrassing one. So they've never lost two in a row. I think that, it would be tough. And again, it would be tough to lose to – I don't personally view the Texans as this, rival of the Cowboys. I think there was a little stretch there, Gary Kubiak offense with Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson and Arian Foch. When those teams are really good, I think people kind of felt it. But I don't think anybody views it that way anymore. And so it would suck to lose that game and then 2 weeks later play the Eagles on Christmas Eve. It would really turn the temperature up, and that's always an uncomfortable feeling.
Michael, what do you think? Would a loss hurt more than a win would help?
I think RJ nailed it. Yeah, it depends on the context. If you're run on for 200 yards by the Colts again, and then you walk into the Texans and they upset you, now it's, oh my Lord. But in general terms, you should beat the team. So a loss to them, the fans are going to freak out more than if you beat them. They're going to be like, well, you should have beat them.
All right, well, RJ, am I wrong to assume that you have this as a win in your book?
Probably. I mean, it's, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I feel comfortable predicting that within the scope of it's the NFL, anything is possible.
Mike?
Yeah, I got it as a W. I just like Dan Quinn versus lower quality quarterbacks. So unless we see Mills take some kind of giant leap, I'm going to take Dallas.
Yeah, this is the W for me as well. As long as Dallas comes to play, this should be a pretty easy victory. Well, here we are heading into week 15, and we're facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. And in 2021, they had a record of 3-14 last in the division. Of course, they missed the playoffs, and in 2022, their strength of schedule is the 7th easiest. Mike, do you feel that Urban Meyer gets too much blame for last season? Could the Jaguars just be that bad?
No, he was terrible. I mean, let's just call it what it is. He's the proof that sometimes what you could do in college just doesn't work when you translate over. You're dealing with adults that make a bunch of money, and you're not going to treat them the same way you do kids in college, which is changing now because they could kind of make some money. But he just wasn't for this level, and I won't destroy him too badly. RJ, you're welcome to, but he just wasn't a good coach. Wasn't really a good person for that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to defend Urban Meyer. I do think that sometimes, and this isn't to take any blame away from him, but I think sometimes when there's as obvious of a fall guy as there was in Jacksonville last year, I think everybody else, again, like kind of benefits from that. Like you're not that bad only because Urban Meyer was a terrible coach and terrible human being. I would say that was 95% of the problem and probably exacerbated a lot of problems like the culture and things like that, set the franchise back. But you can't say like, oh, the entire team, the entire organization is just full of victims in that sense. They are victims of being trapped by him. They did make that bed. I mean, they did hire Urban Meyer, but they're still a team that, is responsible for their own actions to some degree. It's just kind of how I feel.
Right. It's no coincidence that they would go on to win 3 games immediately after he was fired. So, looking at this matchup, does Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence scare you more, RJ?
Definitely Doug Peterson.
Okay.
I was so grateful when the Eagles fired him. He is so good. I mean, it bothers me how good he is. I think he's the right blend of conservativist and he balances conservatism and aggression so well. I mean, he had. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in like a feel, but if anyone has a feel for things, it's Doug Peterson. I really feel. I mean, he's a master at that. And I feel a little bit more okay admiring him now that he's not the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Right. But yeah, I mean, and the Jaguars being successful, I don't think would upset any of us. Like long term, obviously it would suck this year at least, but I'm very, very interested to see what he can do with Trevor Lawrence. I think that this is maybe the best person possible for Trevor Lawrence in response to the Urban Meyer disaster.
Absolutely. Mike, what about you? You more scared of Doug Peterson or Trevor Lawrence?
I love Trevor Lawrence coming out of the draft. He was like one of those, like I hadn't liked a prospect that much since Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck was my favorite player. He's like Luka in football, so I'm not scared of either of them. I know Doug Peterson's a beast. You don't win. You don't have Nick Foles come in and win a Super Bowl. I'm sorry. Like, I honestly can't believe they fired him after he won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Like, especially if you were going to get rid of Wentz anyway, what was the point of losing both of them? I don't know. I'm glad they did. I would say, man, I'm going to go Trev. I'm going to go opposite of RJ. If that kid gets it from Doug Peterson, he's got talent, man. He was my clear number 1 pick of that draft. And I fear him if he's coached correctly.
Yeah, you look at the weapons they have with Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones Jr., and then now with Travis Etienne, coming back from his ACL surgery or his injury there. when you have a guy like Tony Pollard who's kind of similar there to Travis Etienne, Mike, does Tony Pollard help Dan Quinn game plan for Travis Etienne?
I'm hoping so. My hope is that we use him in a way that's what Doug Peterson would do with Etienne. We don't see it consistently from us, and he's not going to be a practice squad guy that they really go against there. So the hope is that he could be that. I don't know, RJ. What do you think? Do you think that it's done enough by us to where he's going to be used like that?
I don't have any faith in the Cowboys utilizing Tony Pollard. I mean, I will more than love to be proven wrong there. They haven't shown enough evidence to believe that. I think they've talked a lot about it. They've toyed with it, but they have not really instituted him in the offense appropriately. And so, I need to see it to believe it sort of situation.
So a report came out over the weekend, RJ. Mike Fisher had a article about Laviska Shenault being rumored to the Dallas Cowboys. How much truth is there to that?
I mean, I'm not a reporter in that sense, so I don't know. I do think it would make sense for the Cowboys to add a veteran at this point, one way or another. I think that, they're banking on James Washington being legitimate, and I don't know how much I believe in that happening. And so it's very possible Michael Gallup misses the first 2 weeks of the season. And so you're rolling out there with CeeDee Lamb, who we've never seen be a top wide receiver in the NFL, a veteran who we don't really believe in James Washington, and a rookie in Jalen Tolbert. That's not exactly something I would feel confident about. So I could certainly see them adding a veteran one way or another before training camp.
Why not Will Fuller, RJ? Do you know why? I mean, I get he's injured, but right now we just need him to get through like the first 4 games or so. Why not Will Fuller?
That's a really good question. I mean, why not Will Fuller? Why not a billion people? For different positions. I mean, they just don't want to. I mean, at this point too, and I know that there are political thoughts on this. Why not Cole Beasley? If you're interested in a veteran wide receiver, you want somebody who you can rely on from a football standpoint. Why not Cole Beasley? There are a lot of options, and so they see, for lack of any other term, they like their guys, and so they're going to stick to that. Stephen Jones said, sorry, not to interrupt you, but I was thinking about this earlier today. Stephen Jones said right after the draft that they were not done in free agency. He was very, very specific about that. That was 2 months ago, and they haven't signed any external free agents since.
They like to play like they could turn injuries off on Madden. And I'm like, bro, get some depth. Like, you're going to get people hurt.
I think, I've always said if nothing went wrong, if there was no footballness to the football, they would be awesome, right? Like, if the plan, was able to be executed every single week, they would be great. Like, if plan A was what they got to execute every single week, they would win every single Super Bowl. But what they are not good at is, okay, what do we do when it's time to enact plan B? Or crap, plan B isn't available. Plan C isn't available. Like, what do you do when you're down to plan Q? And they're not great at that. Like, Doug Peterson's awesome at that, but they're not. And so they don't even have a plan Q. They're just, and then they sit here and they tell us like, well, how is it our fault? We had to go all the way down to plan Q. Give us credit here. It's like, no, it's literally your job to be prepped for this kind of stuff. And so it will happen. Injuries will happen. Football is a battle of attrition in many different senses.
Yeah, Anthony Barr, Will Fuller, and the offensive lineman for Kansas City. Is it Fisher? The tackle. All 3 of those guys would be in a Dallas uniform. If, in my opinion, if I had any say, if I'm playing Madden, I'm loading all 3 of those guys up somehow, if available, if I can get them.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about the usage of Tony Pollard or lack thereof, Mike, but when you look at a guy like Laviska Shenault, do you think he would be a good fit in Dallas?
He fits Kellen Moore. I just don't know if he fits what the Joneses want to do, So I think Kellen Moore, if he goes into his bag like he was early in the year, I think Shenault fits right into there. My worry is if we get the second half of the year. And that might have been a worry about the offensive line or a worry about Dak's injuries. Reports were that the front office might have had some influence. But if we get that half, then no, I don't believe he fits in there. But if we get the first half, sure, he fits.
RJ, what about you? We know that Tony Pollard's usage is frustrating, but with Laviska Shenault's skill set, would he be a good fit in Dallas?
I mean, at this point, you just need another body. You need another veteran receiver that you can count on. I don't mean to downplay, Shenault and his particular skill set, but you're not getting somebody who's coming in that's catching, even 7-8 touchdowns for you. You're getting another guy who you trust, to be helpful in the run game, to just kind of not mess things up. And I think he can do that. I mean, but it's almost July. Like, you got to recognize this is like when, you're waiting till, Tuesday of Thanksgiving week to go get all your side dishes for your main meal.
Yeah. RJ, looking at this matchup, is this a win or a loss?
I think they'll beat the Jaguars. This is, very strange. They've actually only ever played in Jacksonville once. So I'm actually really excited to watch this game. I thought it might be in London, but it's not going to be. So I think they win. This would be their first ever win in Jacksonville. They lost the other game. So it'll be interesting. I think they get the win finally. It's really crazy to think about that way.
That is. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I got a W again. I think if Trev by this time's taking a big step, it could be a challenge, but I think we're a better team, It just is what it is. And we have decent enough coaching to be able to beat them. So I have it as a win as well.
Yeah, that makes three of us guys also have this a win as well. I feel like we're gonna really be starting to take off here with this easy part of the schedule. Hopefully, playing for the division here. Well, moving on here to Week 16, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, and in 2021 they had a 9-9 record. They made the playoffs but lost in the wild card game. And in 2022, their strength of schedule is the third easiest. You looking at this game? Does this a possible division? Could this game be for the division, RJ?
I mean, I don't know that it would be outright. Like, I don't know that there's caps and T-shirts handed out, but it could effectively decide the division winner the way the game in 2018 did. The Amari walk-off, that was basically, the end of the race, for the NFC's title that was. I know the Eagles still made the playoffs. But, yeah, I mean, it's the biggest game of the second half of their season just because of who Philly is and because Philly will probably be a little bit competitive all year long.
Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I have both teams. When I went through both their schedules, I had them both winning more than 10 games. I think the tiebreakers of wins in the division and head-to-head could be what decides it. So, yeah, this could be huge for the division.
Looking at this game, could this be a potential wild card matchup, Mike?
Yeah, like I said, I have both teams winning over 10 games with seven teams going in. Yeah, this definitely easily could be a wild card matchup.
What do you think, RJ?
I mean, that's harder to predict. I know that was almost possible this past year. Yeah, I mean, it's in the realm of possibility because one of them's going to win the division, and so it's definitely mathematically possible, obviously.
Would a win and back-to-back division titles be the best Christmas gift ever, RJ?
I honestly don't think people would enjoy it that much. My read on the fan base is people would enjoy it. Like, if they beat the Eagles, right, and they were basically NFC's champions, like, it would be a fun week. But I do think people would feel like, okay, cool, you won the division. Like, how are you going to disappoint us in the playoffs? Like, I don't think that would wash away what the last 5 months have felt like. And I've never felt that way before. I mean, it would be cool. And they'd be the first team since 2004 to repeat as division champions. It'd be cool to kind of, put an end to all that, cycle. It'd be cool to see them not disappoint a year after winning a division like they've tended to do so many times. But I don't think any of that would wipe it away unless they are just like so far and away one of the best teams in the NFL at that point. Like, unless it's obvious that they are truly a contender, I think people it would feel hollow. It would be like not socks for Christmas, but it would be like okay, great. You got me, a new backpack. Like, I do need this. I wanted it. It's cool, but like, it's not the coolest thing. Like, it's just, it's whatever.
Mike, I know there's some implications for you on this game, it being your birthday now. Would this be not only the best Christmas gift ever, would it be the best birthday gift ever?
That's what I was going to say. What you mean Christmas gift? It's my birthday. That would be the main reason I'd be excited is because obviously getting it done on my birthday would be a nice thing. But I'm with RJ. Honestly, this team should win the division. Like, it's time to do something other. If they're not like, honestly, if they don't get to the NFC Championship game, I don't think everybody's going to be on to Dan Quinn or Sean Payton. That's my belief. Give me Dan Quinn or give me Sean Payton if we're in the NFC Championship game. And I think that's going to be about 85% of the fan base.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
Which one, RJ, Dan Quinn or Sean Payton?
I mean, Dan Quinn doesn't cost you draft capital. You know what I mean? Like Sean Payton does. I do think it's amazing. I love Dan Quinn, but I mean, a year ago when he was hired, I mean, the general response was like, "Oh, the Cowboys got the dude who blew the 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl." Like, I do think there's some prisoner of the momentness happening with Dan Quinn. I love him; he's awesome, but I do think that the Cowboys fans are now in this place where, like, any success the team has, they attribute to Dan Quinn, and any failure they have, they attribute to everyone else. And it's nice to be Dan Quinn. It's awesome, right? Like, anything Dan Quinn says or does is perfect to a lot of fans. But I mean, what if they're division champions but their defense isn't successful, right? Like, what if the offense is successful again? What if the offense wakes up and is carrying them? And so I would like to see people temper their Dan Quinn expectations is all. I think he benefited from I'm not trying to take anything away from Dan Quinn, but I think he benefited from having Super Saiyan unicorn talent in Micah Parsons. And the Cowboys got really lucky. I mean, defensively, they're not going to get that many turnovers next season, and that's going to really shift our perception as far as how good we think they are. I
love Dan Quinn, ... as a defensive coordinator. I don't know about past that. We'll I wouldn't jump on that bandwagon right away like a lot of Dallas fans, like you said, would.
It's a strange time.
Absolutely. Mike, I know we ranked our top 5 sandwiches not that long ago. I can't remember. Did you have Philly cheesesteaks in your top 5 sandwiches?
You have to remember that I cook. So I have sandwiches in there that aren't like, you know what I mean? So it's in my top 10, but like I have sandwiches that are weird, like pork schnitzel sandwich with broccoli rabe and Parmesan cheese. Like nobody else has that sandwich, but I make it. So I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah. It's in the top 10, but I don't know if it's in the top 5.
RJ, where do you have Philly cheesesteaks ranked in your sandwich rankings?
I mean, in the right circumstances, they're hard to beat. Like I like stuff like that when it's cold outside. Like maybe we've gone to a concert or a show or something. It's like afterwards at like a food truck, and the vibe is just really awesome. Like that's when it's great to me. So if I'm in that setting. I mean, it's up there. I don't know that you get into the debates. I don't know that the sandwich to me, it's perfect. Whatever it is, I'm down with it. I'm all about it.
Hey, I like that answer, sir. All right, looking at this matchup, RJ, is this a win or a loss?
I think they win. I don't believe in the Eagles. I do think there's a lot of romanticizing of them from a national perspective. I think they're fine, but I don't think they're amazing. I think Jalen Hurts is still their quarterback, and I think Dak Prescott's still the Cowboys quarterback. So I like Dallas.
And there you go.
Mike? So you'd say Jalen Hurts isn't that great, yes?
I think he's fine. He's and I think if I was an Eagles fan, I would want him to either be awesome or terrible this year. Because I think like him being fine has really trapped them. They don't know what to do with him. So it would suck if you're an Eagles fan and he sucked, but at least you would be able to come to terms with, okay, this dude sucks. Let's move on. But he's just enough to kind of keep you in the mix. And so that's a hard place to be as a franchise quarterback.
Mike,
I'm picking a win.
Really? Okay.
I mean, on my birthday, Dak versus Jalen Hurts, of course I'm picking a win.
I'm giving the Cowboys the L this week, man. On this matchup, I feel like after these 2 games, they kind of take a breath, and they don't overlook the Philly, but they kind of maybe they underestimated the Texans, maybe they underestimated the Jaguars, and they win those games, but they lose a tough one to Philadelphia.
He believes in Jalen Hurts. He's the Jalen Hurts guy. Get out of here.
What can I say?
He's not beating Dak. He can get swept again.
Jalen Hurts is a really cool dude, and he's really likable. And you know what I mean? Like, he's also a great fantasy player. Like, he checks all the boxes. Like, if he played for any other team, I would be a huge fan of his. Just like, you know, we all have NFL players that don't play for the Cowboys that we like. But, I mean, the fact that he plays for the Eagles helps me kind of keep myself grounded a little bit more.
Yeah, I hear you there. Well, here we are to week 17 versus the Tennessee Titans. And in 2021, they were 12-6. In the playoffs, they were 0-1. They lost in the wild card game. And then 2022, their strength of schedule is the 8th easiest. When you look at this Titans team, are they still a playoff team or are they headed towards a rebuild, RJ?
I mean, the Titans are kind of in the same boat as the Cowboys. Like, the division around them is floundering and terrible. I think that they're worse on paper than they were when the season ended. Like, I think they're in a very, very similar spot to Dallas, but they just don't have a franchise quarterback that can lift them up the way Dak Prescott can. And so I think they'll probably still win the division. I think it would. I don't believe in the Colts, like I mentioned. I mean, maybe the Jaguars do take some sort of leap, but I think the Titans win the AFC South again, but in a pretty unimpressive way.
Mike?
I think RJ nailed. I put in my notes, playoff team, but no longer a true contender. That, like, you wouldn't pick them to beat the AFC West teams. You wouldn't pick them to beat probably Baltimore. You probably wouldn't pick them to beat Cincinnati, Buffalo. But
yeah, if they drew Pittsburgh, I'm taking Tennessee, but that's about it. Like, anybody else, I'm good.
They're the Jalen Hurts. They're fine.
You know, shortly after the draft, RJ, a report came out that Dallas was interested in Malik Willis there at pick 88. Do you feel that Tennessee was smart taking a chance on Malik in the third, or is that too risky of a pick in your eyes?
I think it's a great pick for them. It's a great value pick where they were able to get him. Obviously, you know, the whole draft community was a little stunned how far, you know, he fell, and, you know, Desmond Ridder and things like that. I mean, there's a clear question about Ryan Tannehill, and maybe Malik Willis is the answer. Maybe he's not. But if he's not, you spend a third-round pick on him. Like, it's not the end of the world. So I think it was a fine strategy. I don't think it creates like a point of drama. The Titans aren't that team. Like, I don't think anybody is like, who's the starting quarterback of the Titans? Like, nobody cares enough about the Titans to make this a dramatic thing. But it's a good way to hedge their own bet.
Mike?
Yeah, it was well done. I had a third-round grade on him, but the thing about quarterbacks is you have to project them differently than every other position. And so I had him projected as a first-round pick, even though he had a third-round grade, because that's just how it is with quarterbacks. And to see him fall to to the right value is so unique for the quarterback position nowadays. So I thought it was a great pick. Could be a dual threat. Maybe he ends up being a Russell Wilson. And if he's not, you risk that pick 88 on it. You know, it's not terrible. So I love the pick.
When you look at this matchup, Mike, would you rather face Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis?
Willis this year, because like I said, Dan Quinn he's hard to deal with. Dan Quinn's a damn good coordinator on teams that can't run up the middle, because Dallas doesn't provide him with a middle linebacker or one techniques that aren't rookies. And so, the run efficiency still worries me against this team. But as far as throwing the ball, I'd rather face Willis, because I believe Quinn could fool him. And we know what Dallas does. Doesn't always turn over every year, but Dallas is a turnover defense. And so I think they could get turnovers from a rookie.
You're not worried about the lack of film on him at all? You just go back to college
because
tape?
you kind of do. Dan Quinn, although he does go towards what the other team does, which is one of the things I like about him, he'll switch up his style. I think with the team he has this year, he's going to be able to do a lot more of this is what we're going to do against quarterbacks like this, and we're going to beat them that way. And so I'd expect him to be able to handle Willis.
RJ, what about you? Would you rather face Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis?
I mean, probably Malik Willis. I mean, you know, there's obviously the chance that he could come in and have an incredible rookie season and whatnot. But, you know, The odds are with Malik Willis. The odds are certainly that I'd rather face Malik Willis.
Yeah, kind of. I think about it. It's like it would kind of. I could see a Taysom Hill, New Orleans Saints like first half type of game where if he doesn't get injured and he starts running the ball, then things got a little bit scary there. Of course, we know how that game ended, but no, I don't know. Something about him, about his style scares me against our defense.
And Tannehill's not, he ain't putting the fear of God into anybody. So the unknown sometimes is like, I'd rather go with this guy that does not scare me than the unknown that I don't know if it's going to scare me or not.
Right. So, Mike, is this a win or a loss?
I got it as a loss, but basically a letdown. They won 3 straight. They beat the Eagles in the division. Titans are one of those teams that'll play up because it's Dallas. They'll run the ball well. You're not going to win every game. So I would mark this one down as an L if I was predicting it.
RJ?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I mentioned that 2018 game against the Eagles. The Cowboys, it was a really like intense game. They won, and they basically won the NFC East. And the next week, they kind of took their foot off the gas and they lost 23-0 against the Colts. Just because they knew they had the division kind of in the bag. I can kind of see a similar sort of situation here where it's serious, it's important, but they know they have some room for error. So yeah, I think they probably lose this game.
Yeah, I would have this one as a dub because we I had them losing last week to the week prior to the Eagles. This is a get right gate for them, and their defense and their offense puts things together. So here we are with Week 18. We're facing the Washington Commanders. At 2021, their regular season record was 7-10. They missed the playoffs in their 2022 strength of schedule, the second easiest. RJ, what do you think led to the downfall of Carson Wentz?
I don't think he was that bad last year. I think Carson, has been a little spoiled and a little entitled, and I think we also probably don't give him a big enough sort of line of rope. He dealt with a really awkward situation in Philadelphia. I mean, I was never rooting for him, but that had to have been so awkward and painful, like emotionally difficult to watch somebody else live your dream that way. And and I'm sure lots of players and people said, Carson, you were just as much a part of this as we were, but they built a statue to Nick Foles. I mean, like that is a difficult thing to deal with. And so, I think he was made to be the bad guy in Indianapolis. Again, people say, oh, Carson was so bad against Jacksonville and Vegas and they lost, they choked away their playoffs. The Colts were bad. The Colts have been awful. And I honestly, what's kind of made me not believe in Carson, but the Colts general manager, Chris Ballard, I've thought has been so unprofessional about Carson Wentz this entire offseason, coming out and dragging him and trashing him and talking about how we would have traded him even if we won that game against the Jaguars. I mean, they have completely and totally made Carson Wentz this scapegoat. We talked about Urban Meyer kind of being like the visible face of the Jaguars' failure. I mean, the Colts have thrown Carson Wentz under the bus, and Chris Ballard's done it. Jim Irsay's done it. Frank Reich has done it. Carson's guy. I mean, everybody has made it seem like we were these huge victims because we traded for Carson Wentz and we did all this stuff on purpose and feel sorry for us. And I think they've downgraded. I think that Carson Wentz today is a better player than Matt Ryan. And so Carson is probably the most stable quarterback that the Commanders have had since Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's not great, but I think he's like the 15th best quarterback in the NFL.
What do you think's the difference between what the guy that was from 2017 that was now I understand he went crazy on third downs and that's not sustainable, but he just seems like a different guy. Injuries, was it the mental? Was it just mental? What do you think changed that?
I think he's trying. He's tried ever since then to play hero ball. I mean, he's tried to, and whether that's like trying to fit it in a tight window or trying to be reckless with his body and getting hurt, he is trying to do something larger and more epic than what the Eagles did without him, right? Because like that's human nature. Have you guys ever seen? I've said this before, but have you guys ever seen the movie Pearl Harbor? The movie from like so in the movie. Ben Affleck is dating Liv Tyler, right? And whatever. And he and Josh Hartnett are best buds. And Ben Affleck, goes on like some super mission. I don't remember the details. And he protects Josh Hartnett because they're buddies. And he makes sure that Josh Hartnett doesn't go on the super mission, whatever. And Ben Affleck is believed to have died, right? Like on the mission. Oh man, this is terrible. So what happens? Liv Tyler and Josh Hartnett in their morning fall in love, right? And they get together. Well, Ben Affleck's alive, comes back, and he's like, wait a minute, like, this sucks. Like, I have to watch my best friend and my, like, girlfriend be together, whatever. And then at the end of the movie, you both have seen it, so no spoilers here. Josh Hartnett dies in Ben Affleck's arms, but Liv Tyler's pregnant with Josh Hartnett's child. And they have, Ben Affleck then raises his best friend's, son, which is a great story and really empathetic and things like that. But like Ben Affleck is Carson Wentz to me. And like, he had this tragedy happen to him, and Liv Tyler is success and fame and admiration from football fans everywhere. And Josh Hartnett is Nick Foles, who came in and accomplished something special, had a real authentic thing, but then was gone. And so like, it's just an awkward situation. Like it's awkward. I don't think anyone has ever given Carson Wentz that benefit. I'll remember Chris Long and all them had Nick Foles candles and things like that. That would be awkward. It would upset anybody. And so I think Carson has tried to then become a better soldier or whatever and tried to outdo everything that Nick Foles did so that he can feel better. He can feel like, I've done the most epic thing. I've accomplished it. Now everyone can love me. We can do all this, and I could be the center of attention. And is that narcissistic and selfish? Yeah, but we're all narcissistic and selfish. So I really feel for Carson Wentz on a lot of levels.
Hey, kudos to you, man. I've never seen anybody stick up for Carson Wentz like that.
Well, I didn't feel this way until the last few months. I think the way Carson handled things, again, it was natural. It was natural to feel the way he did, but he was very childish about it. I think we can all agree about that. And I don't know that I would be a better person. So, I'm not trying to, cast any stones or anything like that. But the way the Colts have disconnected from him is really gross in my mind. And again, they have acted like he is the face of their failure. We've all sat here and trashed the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. The mighty Colts defense let them march all over them in week 18. Like, that had nothing to do with Carson Wentz. But they act like they were just, hindered by Carson's terrible persona and terrible leadership. And I'm not saying he's a great leader, but I think that the Colts have even worse leaders because they're acting like Carson was this plague. They traded for him. I mentioned the word narcissist. It was incredibly narcissistic of Frank Reich to feel like, I know all this crap happened. I can fix him. I'm the guy that has this special relationship. I speak Carson Wentz. I can fix him. I can do this. That's a really narcissistic thing. And nobody blames the Colts for this, because it's cool to hate on Carson Wentz, because he's a meme, because it's funny, because he's awkward. So Carson is the loser and the Colts are the winners in most people's eyes.
Wow. Well, Mike, when you look at Carson Wentz, do you think this is going to be his last year as a starter?
I don't know. I seriously do not want to. That was like banana pudding and defensive tackle segment good. Like, that was top level. That will be all-time clip level.
Yeah, for sure.
And I do not want to follow it. I think it's unlikely that he will go to a backup role. He was the number 2 overall pick. He has a hell of a lot of talent. And the next coach will think the same thing he said. They're all narcissistic. The next one's going to think, well, I can fix him. Mm-hmm. If I fix him, he's got the arm. If I fix him, he's got all the talent. He was going to be an MVP. And so, no, I think he's got another 1 or 2 seasons probably to attend. Look at Big Ben the last couple of years, and the way he's stuck in Pittsburgh. Phillip Rivers moved over. Matt Ryan right now going to replacing Carson Wentz. Like, people are gonna believe, if you had a year or 2 or were a big time draft pick, they're gonna believe they can fix whatever little things are wrong with the talent. So, I don't know about you, RJ. What do you think? You think he's gonna be a starter past this year?
Probably not. Because the narrative on him is so poor. He's not going to a place where he's likely going to be set up for success. Although, on paper, Carson Wentz by many metrics, by PFF offensive grade, by DVOA from a quarterback perspective, was a better player last year than Matt Ryan, than Jalen Hurts, than Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he was awesome, but he was definitely better than he gets credit for. And so you put that guy with Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, and their running backs are kind of cute. You got Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. Like, that's that's not a terrible offense on paper. Like, I could see them having some levels of success. I don't know what their over under is like from a offensive success standpoint, but I would probably take the over. I think that they're hip to hate, like, because of the joke that the franchise is like, there's such low hanging fruit. But if it doesn't work here, I mean, because then the narrative is like, dude, you had 3 seasons with 3 different teams. They all gave up on you. Like, that's a difficult thing to overcome. It would take a dramatic shift in events, I think, for him to be a starter if he's playing for somebody else that isn't Washington.
RJ, I don't know where you stand on this, but, if seeding in the division are decided, should the starter still play in this game at all?
I am generally of the opinion, like, I thought it was dumb that they played in Philly last year. I did not like that. I know it worked, and I even that night tweeted that I was wrong, because, it is so difficult to do things the right way. If you're going to play and it's meaningless, you have to smash them, right? Like, because you have to prove, like, we didn't need this game. We're flexing. We're dunking on y'all. And they did that. And obviously Philly had nothing to play for and kind of played possum themselves. I would rest. I mean, only bad things can happen. And again, like, back to the point we talked about, if they won the division, if they had the division locked up and they were out there like celebrating touchdowns, people would be saying the same stuff. It'd be like, yeah, y'all were partying in Philadelphia last year, and what happened? The next week, San Francisco wrecked y'all. So I think that I would even more specifically want them to chill this season.
Mike?
No, I agree. I don't mind if they come out for like a series, if they just want them to get, the same old, so they keep their routine. But I really don't care if you play at all. If you ain't got nothing to play for, football is too dangerous. Dak goes out, Tyron Smith goes out. Like, this team is on a thin line right now on paper. And so you lose a CeeDee Lamb, a Tyron Smith, a Dak, a Parsons, a Trayvon Diggs, or even a Malik Hooker, a Curse. You lose somebody like that, and it could be a huge dent in your playoff run. So, no, I'm sitting almost the whole game, if not the whole game.
All right, RJ, whether it be backups or starters, is this a win or a loss?
I would be stunned if they lost this game. I mean, obviously anything's possible, and without knowing anything, I'd still need a win here.
Mike?
Same. W if they play. They'd have to not play anybody, and Commanders are playing everybody for them to lose.
Yeah, same. This is a W for me. All right, here we are, the record recap. RJ, it looks like you have us going 4-1 in this 5-game stretch. Mike, you're 4-1, and I also am 4-1 in this 5-game stretch. So, looking at the schedule overall, RJ, what is your record prediction for the Cowboys this season?
I mean, that math comes out to 12-5, but that's just so hard to believe in. I mean, for a variety of reasons. I mean, like, this offseason has not gone well for them. And it's not like this offseason has not gone well because they've just been unlucky. Like, it's not gone well because of decisions they've made, which is troubling. They haven't been a playoff team in back-to-back years since 2006 and 2007. They haven't won double-digit games in back-to-back years since 1995 and 1996. As like I said earlier, the NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion since 2004. And ultimately, none of those things mean anything, kind of back to my fun tweets thing. But it's history, like, that they're fighting, right? Like, it's history for a reason. It's, again, it's meaningless, but it just makes you think. And so if there's one time that they would, have to defy and fight through and persevere through all this chaos of history, I just don't think it's this team. You know what I mean? Like, this team that's been kind of stripped down a little bit. Maybe they get lucky. Maybe, I think they're banking, Mike, you talked about how they, we talked about the plan A thing. They are banking on being the exception to the rule. They're banking on, every defense, does regress to the mean. Players like Trayvon and Micah, their volume and production regresses to the mean. That's not going to be us. That and maybe it won't be, right? Like, in the world of infinite possibilities, it's possible that they get better, that Trayvon has more interceptions, that Micah has more sacks. That is technically possible, but it is so unlikely. And so if they do all those things, I'll be the first one. I'll cook all the crow. You know what I mean? We'll have a big crow cook-off party. I just don't think it's happening. But it's when you look at their schedule, it's also difficult to find more losses than wins.
Would you be more surprised if the Cowboys didn't win 10 games or if they won 12 games?
I'd probably be more surprised if they won 12 games. I mean, because like 10 feels safe. Like I could totally see them going 10-7, but 12 means you were really, really good. And 12 also generally means you caught some luck, and luck is luck, but it's also kind of measurable. And they were really fortunate last year, and so that luck, like I said, will probably regress to the mean. So it would mean they got a weird pick six to win some game. It would mean that they had a crazy last second field goal. They had a crazy game win they stole from defeat. Like we can sit here very easily, and we could say, you know what, they probably shouldn't have beat the Chargers last year. They probably shouldn't have beat the Patriots. They probably shouldn't have beat the Patriots. And they probably shouldn't have beat Minnesota with Cooper Rush as their starting quarterback, right? That's 3 games, right? Like, just like we didn't have to try it hard at all to come up with 3. So say that those 3 shift 100%. Now you go from 12-5 to 9-8. Like and the difference between those 2 teams is that small. And so is that difference on their side? Is it against them in 2022? I don't know, but I would bet it's against them because that's just kind of the way the pendulum tends to swing.
Yeah, they forgive the shameless plug on my own show, but on Cowboys Wire, I did an article talking about like the risks that Dallas's front office has taken, and they're really, really banking on the progression of their draft classes, the Osas, the Chaunceys, the Parsons. They are like even Jabril Cox, who we barely got to see play. People are just like, "There's your third linebacker," and it's like,
I mean. Two things within that. I mean, and I'm not trying to just be like Eeyore and doom. I know you're a Disney guy, Mike, but I mean, you mentioned Chauncey Golston last week. Todd Archer from ESPN did a 53-man roster prediction. I really trust Todd, and Chauncey Golston wasn't on it. So how is that the case? Like, that would be kind of stunning. And you mentioned Jaron Kearse. I love Jaron Kearse. Like, awesome, super. It's been great to have like an awesome player play safety for the Cowboys, but. What if last year was just this like exception for him? Like he was an NFL journeyman, up until that point. And I do not want to talk ill of Jaron Kearse at all. I'm a huge fan. But what if he returns to that guy? Like what if last year was some sort of aberration of sorts? But again, that's where they're banking on. They really hit last year with those journeymen. They hit on Jaron Kearse, on Carlos Watkins, on Terrell Basham to a degree, and they're banking on doing it again. They're thinking James Washington is just like that. Dante Fowler is just like that, and they're probably not. But again, they could be right. It's just really unlikely that they are.
Agreed.
So, RJ, do you have the Cowboys as a playoff team this year?
Yeah, I mean, because again, as much as I feel this way, like I said, it's difficult. I would have a hard time, assigning them 10 losses outside of some crazy injury or, like Malik Willis becoming a rookie sensation, like something crazy, or Trevor Lawrence taking the next step, like, or the Giants, I think they might split the series with the Giants this year. I think that the Giants got a little bit competent this offseason, which sucks. But yeah, I mean, I think they're a playoff team, but that's why it's such a weird thing. It's so hard to see them messing this up. But if anyone were ever going to, it's this group of people.
Yes, sir.
Boy, howdy. What about your circled game? What's your, for you, the game for you that's the big game this year?
It's probably that Philly game, if I'm being super objective. But, that game might not matter. And it might not matter because maybe the Eagles are bad. Maybe they don't deliver on the way people believe in them. So I think a game that it's probably the Packers game. I mean, that game it's going to be stupid that people are going to take one game and come to like this massive conclusion from it. But if the Cowboys go up to Lambeau Field and win with Mike McCarthy and beat Aaron Rodgers, then it becomes a matter of like, okay, maybe this dude has it. Maybe we really did, pull off some sort of heist here. Maybe he truly was wronged, by we use that word a lot, narcissistic Aaron Rodgers. But if they go up there and they lose, or if they go up there and they just get destroyed, then it's like, man, we're just a joke. We got the guy who, they're so much better off without him. I mean, that game is going to send the takes to one extreme, one way or the other, depending on that is such an important game for the future of the Dallas Cowboys. How that game goes, because it will impact a lot of perceptions.
Imagine if they win every game except for Tampa game 1 and Rams game 5 too. And then you're sitting there going in Green Bay, you're sitting there going, oh yeah, you can beat all those other teams, because people aren't going to really believe in Cincinnati. They got hot. They're not going to think that's a big win. So they're going to be looking at that Green Bay game like, okay, let's see now. Oh yeah, you only have 2 losses, but can you beat Green Bay? It could be huge.
I agree. I think even if they beat the Rams, like even if they go beat the Super Bowl champions, people will say, yeah, well, they got lucky too. Like, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay is a bit of a coward, whatever, this and that. Like, but can you go beat the team that has owned you? Can you go beat, because that's why you hired Mike McCarthy, right? You didn't hire Mike McCarthy to beat the Rams. You hired Mike McCarthy to get over the hump that you couldn't get over. And that hump was Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, RJ, who's going to the Super Bowl this year?
Bills and Vikings. Mix it up. Bills and Vikings.
Oh, really? The Vikings?
Wow.
I believe in the Vikings. That's why I think I really think the Cowboys will probably win at Lambeau. I'm with you guys. Like, I think it's too important to them, like the reputation of it all. But I really believe it. I think Kirk Cousins is so slept on because, again, he's a meme. Like, he's funny. He's Kirk. He's you like that. Like, he's That's all anybody sees with him. He's super talented and super productive, and they have maybe the best receiver in the NFL. Adam Thielen is an amazing wide receiver too. Dalvin Cook is like the 3rd best running back in the NFL. I mean, and they no longer have Mike Zimmer trapping them. Like, I feel similar to them, to the way I felt about the Cowboys after they moved on from Jason Garrett. Like, I think they've gotten rid of their worst problem that pains me because I really liked Mike Zimmer in Dallas, but I'm really high on the Vikings. I hope they win the NFC North. Like, I would love that for them. And again, like, I would love to see the internet have to eat some crow on Kirk Cousins. Like, people talk about playoff wins. Kirk Cousins went to New Orleans and got a playoff win, and people act like that never happened. Like, he's awesome.
Is he in the same tier as Dak? Is Dak higher? Is Kirk Cousins higher in your view?
If I had to like completely rank them, I would definitely rank Dak higher. But I think that Kirk is like if I recently talked about the best quarterbacks in the NFC. So you got like Brady and Rodgers, right? Like whatever. And then honestly, I would put Dak 3rd. And if you wanted to put, some people would say, well, Stafford has a ring. Well, like, fine. If you want to put Stafford 3rd and Dak 4th, fine. But my 5th is Kirk Cousins. Like, if the front 4 is some order of Brady, Rodgers, Stafford, Dak, number 5, I would put Kirk ahead of Kyler Murray easily.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk's definitely done more than Kyler Murray. Kyler's he's got that fantasy bias going for him, But really, what did he do with his first game in the playoffs,
They collapsed way before that, but yeah. So
yeah, I could do some stuff on Kyler Murray. We don't want to get into that. I'm not a big fan of his either. I'm with you.
All right,
as somebody who went to Texas A&M, I agree with you. Sorry, just to get that in. He left A&M.
No worries. So. Yeah, people will tend to overlook like his history in college before he got to OU. Definitely. Sure. RJ, I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. Before we get you out of here, let the people know where they can find you on Twitter and where we can find your content.
On Twitter at RJ Ochoa, and that's just kind of a hub for everything I do. Obviously, blogontheboys.com. We got things coming out every single day, and anywhere you get content, you can search for Blog of the Boys. On YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel. Wherever you get your podcast, you can subscribe to our podcast network. We have 2 different shows that come out every single day. We're obviously on all levels of social media. I mean, just I know I sound it all doom and gloom, but at the end of the day, it is the sickest thing in the world that we all live in all these different places, and the internet connects us because of the one thing that we all love and get to share with each other. So thanks for sharing it with me tonight. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
That was awesome.
Mike, where can we find you on Twitter?
I just want to say, I always say letter C, letter D, Piglet, nice and easy, but I must give the crown over. I always say I have the best Twitter name because it's easy. CD Piglet. RJ Ochoa. That is how you do a Twitter name. You officially get the nice and easy hashtag. That name is yours for the week. That is how you do a Twitter name, people. Not this Paul _ with a 1. That's a bullshit name. That's too hard. RJ Ochoa. That is perfection. You win, sir.
Guys, I'm Paul Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at Paul_Ryan15. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.